joining me now is someone who has a pretty cool job, I won't lie. This is Shaun Dergousoff. I knew I wouldn't get it right, but I tried, Shaun, who studies arthropods, so insects and other creatures that are vectors for livestock disease. And Shaun, you're joining us from Alberta to talk about a tick that can possibly transmit something that makes people allergic to red meat. And this sounds totally out of this world. So explain this to me, please.
Yes, hello, Lindsay. Yes, this is actually one of the most interesting things we've seen in quite a while with the ticks. So this tick's been in the news quite a bit, largely because of what people are calling the red meat allergy. And so the tick is commonly called the Lone Star tick, and its scientific name is Amblyomma americanum. And it gets the name Lone Star tick just because of the white dot on the the back of the female's body there. And so, again, being a tick, it requires a blood meal from different hosts. And but also, it's not an insect. So this is important, though, because this is an arachnid, more closely related to spiders and mites. But this is important for its feeding pattern. And so even though the tick lives for about 2 to 3 years, it only feeds 3 times in its life. And it'll feed as a larva, which is this tiny, like half-millimeter size tick, about the size of a grain of sand with legs. And then it'll molt and change into the nymph, which will also feed once. And this nymph is probably about 1 to 2 millimeters in size. And after it feeds, it'll turn into an adult. And this adult is about 3 to 4 millimeters. And again, this will feed on a different host. But what makes this tick partly interesting and also a problem is that it'll feed on several different types of animals. And so that'll include small animals like squirrels, some medium-sized animals like dogs, and also some larger animals into deer and cattle, and they'll feed on people, at almost every stage will, and they also feed on birds.
Okay, so this is now I heard about this a couple years ago, and it is slightly terrifying, and perhaps it's terrifying because of the increased awareness of something like Lyme disease, which is also spread by ticks. So, has this tick been in Canada a long time, and we're just sort of hearing about it now? Is it sort of the wild factor because it can cause this allergy in humans? So why are we sort of hearing about it now? And is it really brand new, or are we just finally aware of it?
Yeah, I think the awareness is really coming out of this really strange occurrence of producing this red meat allergy. But the tick, we've been seeing it in Canada popping up through, we have passive surveillance programs that are national, but also different provinces have them. And they'll see the Lone Star tick being submitted every year, varying numbers depending on the province. In Alberta, out of almost 3,000 submissions, they see maybe 12 in the last few years. And in Saskatchewan, just 1 in the last from 2009 to 2017, but in Ontario, it fluctuates quite a bit, around maybe averaging around 50 ticks. So the thing is, though, these ticks that are being submitted to the surveillance program are likely brought in from birds from the United States and dropped off and then picked up by people or animals, usually pets, and then submitted. Or some people are bringing them in on their own travels, on themselves or on their dogs, when they travel to places in the United States where this tick usually occurs. So it's been found here for quite a while, but we still don't have any indication that it's become established here. So it hasn't set up really a home anywhere in Canada that we know of, and then has a reproducing population to sustain itself. So it has to keep being reintroduced to the ones that we see each year here.
Okay, so interesting. So unlike, let's say, wood ticks or deer ticks, those sorts of things are we only seeing adults here for the most part? So are we assuming that a lot of them are traveling here by some other vector, human or animal?
Yeah, a lot of them are adults as far as I know.
Okay.
And they do see some nymphs, the middle stage,
Mm-hmm.
life stage. But you can have the larvae, the first life stage, or the nymphs, the second life stage, being brought in on birds. And then once they drop off on them, then they molt into either the nymphs, if they're larvae, or else into adults, if they're nymphs. And typically, though, it's very difficult to see the smaller stages, too. So you're going to more likely detect adult ticks, either on yourself or, say, on your dog.
Mm-hmm. So now let's get to the nitty gritty, because I am someone who chooses to eat meat, and I raise sheep, and I really like red meat. And so the idea that I would actually have a very dangerous, because this isn't suddenly you can't handle meat or you don't like it. It's a quite serious reaction to red meat. Now, so is this a bacteria that's causing this? Walk me through sort of that part of it so I can understand.
All right. Yeah, this can be a very serious allergy and causing anaphylactic reactions. So it is something to be concerned about where this tick occurs. Now, as far as the cause of the allergy, it's thought now that there's something within the saliva of the tick, which when it's feeding, it actually injects the saliva into your body, and that will contain this alpha-galactose carbohydrate, which is a sugar, and which is what your body reacts to. And now that's not normally found in your body, so you get this immune reaction to it. And so the Lone Star tick actually produces this, or at least it's in the saliva. And whether or not maybe it's a bacteria that causes it that's associated with the tick, that hasn't been determined. But something in its saliva is being injected, which causes you to react to sugar that's within the meat, red meat that you're eating, or red meat products such as gelatins.
Wow. Okay. So I mean, as a red meat eater, it sounds terrible. But also, of course, from anyone, this is of course a health issue. But how big of a risk are we really talking? Now, I think when it comes to ticks, most of us are icked out by them. And of course, Lyme disease is very serious. We know that if we suspect that we've had a tick and we end up with that bullseye rash, and we would suspect that we might be exposed to Lyme, that we have an antibiotic course that we could potentially take. If someone were to find a Lone Star tick, and they've been bitten by it, do we have any sort of recourse, or is that still in the works?
Well, there's two issues here. First of all, yes, you need to have the tick. So these occurrences of the red meat allergy are really follow the distribution of the tick. So being in Canada, we're quite lucky where it's not normally occurring here. To actually be bitten by one of these ticks is actually quite rare. But also, you've got the issue of you have to be predisposed to the allergy also, just like any other allergy, like a peanut allergy. And it seems that the proportion of the population that's predisposed to this is very similar to other allergies, such as the peanut allergy. So some of the numbers I've seen is maybe about 0.1% of the population. So again, you put all those risks together, and it's quite small. But again, in areas where that tick is quite prevalent, there may be quite a large number that are exposed to this tick, and then there will be a number of people that this is a problem for. So.
Okay, so absolutely, I'm going to now, of course, be checking myself doubly for ticks, because I am in Ontario. I am in an area, a hotspot for the Lyme disease carrying ticks. So we do tick checks very often in this family, and having livestock, many dogs, it's a pretty common thing. So now I'm just going to add this one to the list, Shaun. Just gonna of the creepy, icky things that could be on my pant leg. So, well, but I will say, and thank you very much for this, is of course awareness is one of those key things that you you can't say you hadn't heard of it, because now you have, and so to be on the lookout. So, Shaun, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Shaun is with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, and you're based at Lethbridge, are you not?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. All right. Beautiful, windy Lethbridge. Shaun, our the regular host of the show, is based in Lethbridge, and so yes, I've only been there once in my life, and I can't say that I would ever expect there to be ticks. It is dry, and there's not a lot of greenery.
And we do have a species that does quite well here.
Really?
And that's the thing about ticks. There's always a kind for everything or every animal.
Yeah, so there you go. All right, very cool. All right, Shaun, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
Yes, nice talking to you.